Bailey Ober prepares to make his spring training debut for the Minnesota Twins on Friday night. Has he become the forgotten twin?
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Twins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Twins writer for Zone Coverage and a lifelong Twins fan just like you. This episode is brought to you by MLB The Show 26. Visit MLB.show/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON to unlock a pack for use in Diamond Dynasty. Pre-order now, available March 17th on PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Rated E for everyone. Today, we take a look at the Minnesota Twins top 30 prospects being revealed on MLB.com. We also look at the Locked On MLB top 100, breaking down numbers 90 through 81. But first, we take a look at Bailey Ober. Dan Hayes had a great piece talking about him getting ready for his first start of spring training on Friday night. And it kind of hit me when I was reading it that, oh yeah, Bailey Ober hasn't made a spring training appearance yet. And it kind of got me thinking that in all of this talk about starting pitching and all of this talk about, veteran Twins, and, we've talked a lot about Pablo López and Joe Ryan and the Byron Buxtons of the world, and even Ryan Jeffers to an extent. But of the Twins veterans that have been around for the last handful of seasons and are some of the more kind of mainstays in terms of front of mind for the fan base, Bailey Ober was always that guy. And as I was thinking, I was like, I just kind of forgot about him. That doesn't mean I don't like Bailey Ober. It doesn't mean I don't think he can be effective. It just means that he's kind of slipped out of the subconscious of Twins fans a little bit going into this season. And it's been fascinating why. And Bailey Ober having a setback here kind of also relates to the fact that even when the Twins are searching for starting pitching and want to know answers, Bailey Ober's kind of slipped into this middle ground where you have the Mick Abels, the Taj Bradleys, the Kendry Rojas's, the Simeon Woods Richardsons, these young pitchers where it's like, okay, what is their ceiling? What do we know about their ceiling? And you have guys like Pablo López and Joe Ryan, and you know the production they are going to give you on a typical start. And then Bailey Ober used to be the most consistent out of everybody in the group on kind of what baseline they could give you. And I think that's part of the reason why Bailey Ober has become this forgotten twin in a way, is because we already know about Pablo López and Joe Ryan. We know that they are top of the rotation kind of starters. We know that they can be all-stars when they're on their game. We know that they're highly regarded in Major League Baseball. And if you go back to our last show, you remember me talking about Joe Ryan and why he is all of a sudden built up this national following more than ever is because a lot of teams want to trade for him. But Bailey Ober, despite the fact that he made his debut in the same season as Joe Ryan, despite the fact that there have been years, especially 2023 came to mind, where you could look and say Bailey Ober might be just as impactful, if not more impactful, than Joe Ryan in spurts, right? Like Bailey Ober had a really nice 2024 season. But why isn't there any trade steam for Bailey Ober like there is for a Joe Ryan? And the reason is Bailey Ober had a really out of character 2025. And I think that bad season has just left a sour taste in the mouth of Twins fans, where they already kind of know that Ober won't have the ceiling of a Joe Ryan, a Pablo López, but he also has a high enough production level where you know that he is going to be in the big league rotation. You kind of know what you're getting out of him. So when you're speculating, when you're thinking about the offseason and you're thinking about the season to come, you rarely are thinking of a player like Bailey Ober, and it's why he slipped, I think, into the subconscious of Twins fans in terms of just not thinking about him, in that he kind of just gets left to the wayside because there's no next level for him, but also he's got a good enough production where you're not worried about him either, typically. And also he just had a bad 2025 season that now kind of makes you think, okay, what is the future of Bailey Ober? Is he going to be traded? Is he going to be traded for a big haul like a Joe Ryan trade could potentially net? Or is he just kind of going to be on the Twins and hang around and maybe get flipped for a prospect later down the road or something along those lines, or leave in free agency or whatever that case may be? But for Bailey Ober, he was a pitcher that would never really throw hard. He kind of would top out his fastball in like the 92, 93 mile an hour range. And he would really do well, as we've talked about with a lot of Twins pitchers, his extension. He generates velocity. He generates swings and misses. Despite the fact that he doesn't throw the fastball hard, he gets people. In 2021 to 2024, he was generating a lot of whiffs because he would hold that ball in his hand longer than a lot of other pitchers. He has the long frame, and it can be deceptive with that wingspan for opposing hitters, which can generate swings and misses. He was always in the strike zone. He would give up some home runs from time to time, but you live with that because he pitched high in the strike zone. And for Bailey Ober, coming into this season, he basically talked about how he spent a lot of time working to try and get parts of his game right, trying to get himself healthy. Said he was dealing with multiple injuries throughout the campaign, and not necessarily ones that were big and massive, but a lot of things where it's, oh, hey, my leg isn't feeling weird, so now I got to overcompensate in this one spot. Now I got to overcompensate in my hip, and I have to do all that. And it definitely impacted him in terms of his fastball velocity. It was down to 90.3 miles an hour on that average fastball velo, 6th percentile. Not a great time for Ober in that aspect. He still got chases, but he didn't get swings and misses. He was in the bottom half of the league in terms of his whiff rate. And also that means strikeouts. Again, a 19.2% strikeout rate, 24th percentile. And again, Ober was typically somebody who would be in that above average, above 50%, into that 60 to 80th percentile typically throughout his career. And I think basically if you look at Bailey Ober and if you think if he's got the mechanics right and he's healthy, there's no reason to think that Bailey Ober can't go back to the pitcher he was in 2023 and in 2024. If these injury issues linger, you could potentially see the Twins being in trouble. And it's what Bailey Ober had a setback as he started out camp, and he just has taken rest. He's been able to have some BP sessions or throwing live batting practice to hitters. And while Dan Hayes of The Athletic noted in his piece that he was getting hit, but there was fastball movement. And again, you're not necessarily working to get outs in those situations. You're just trying to test out how your fastball's working, how your slider's moving, how all this is going. And when Ober is on top of his game, his fastball and changeup are really, really good. And if he can find a way to just get himself right, to get himself healthy, he's in a really important spot. The Twins need a floor for their starting rotation. They have Joe Ryan. They have Simeon Woods Richardson. They need Bailey Ober to be the floor. Otherwise, you're going to be relying on 3 rookies. And depending on how you view about Simeon Woods Richardson, 4 question marks in young and talented, but albeit unproven starting rotation. Bailey Ober is important for this team because he sets a floor, because you know exactly what you're getting out of him on a start in and start out basis. He's going to have anywhere from a 3.5 to a 4 ERA. He's going to give you a good 6 innings. He's going to keep you in the ball game every single time. And in 2025, he had an ERA over 5. So for him to try and get back on track and to do that would really help. There's a quote from Ober who said in the past, he's pitched in games where he's felt terrible, physically just beat up. In those instances, he says he's able to make those changes week in and week out to get back on track. And this one, he said he felt like he could get back on track, but he wasn't able to. And sometimes he'd have 10 throws in a row where he'd feel great. And sometimes he'd have 10 in a row where he's like, I don't know where this pitch is going. And that's not a great thing you want to hear when it comes to the Twins, for the Twins, when it comes to pitching for him. And basically he trained over the offseason in Sarasota, working with a former Twins employee who helps rehab and things like that, just trying to get his mechanics right and feeling good on the mound. And if he can do that, Twins will have success with Ober in 2026. But he's become forgotten in this sense where we kind of just don't talk about Ober. And I think that can change rather quickly if he gets back to his 2024 self. If he still struggles with those injuries, if he still struggles trying to locate, and if he still struggles with the velo, we're looking at a much different Bailey Ober than what we've become accustomed to seeing. We're going to take a look through the Twins' top 30 prospect list and where they rank. It's no shocker. Walker Jenkins is at number 1, but what else do we have? Other highlights in that list and more, all coming up after this. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now, FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever you think you can do. FanDuel's got it for you. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club, which is ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with other listeners of the show. Just tap the link in the show notes or go to lockedontwins.supercast.com. All right, well, the Minnesota Twins have had their top 30 prospect ranking from MLB.com get released, and I've been waiting for this one. It's been a while since we've got an MLB update on the prospect list. And again, it's not gospel. It's just the people who work for MLB.com have put together this ranking of the Minnesota Twins top 30 prospects. There's a bunch of other prospect rankers out there, and go listen to all of them too, and basically get a big conglomerate together and kind of base things off. You know, one list isn't gospel, but I do really like MLB.com, so I think it's easy to use. I think you get a good little write-up. It's one of the ones I go to when I try and just kind of get a baseline of where Twins prospects sit. But that being said, if you have your favorite person who you go to or favorite publication you go to for prospects, hey, drop it down in the comments. I want to know, where are you getting your top prospect information from? Let's take a look where the Twins sit in their top 5. Walker Jenkins, no surprise. Twins top prospect, the best raw hitting prospect, the best pure hitter prospect since probably Joe Mauer. When you look at that left-handed swing, and I know Parker Hageman on Twitter had a video, basically had them side by side with their swings, and not that they're one-to-one similar, but they are very alike, which is very fascinating for me. Walker Jenkins, of course, could play center field, probably profiles more as that corner outfield type, maybe play some right field, maybe play some left, kind of depends on how the Twins situation fits. But Walker Jenkins is a guy that can steal bases, hits for contact a lot. The biggest thing will be if he can develop that power going forward, but he is the potential kind of future face of the franchise. If you could get a Walker Jenkins / Royce Lewis / Byron Buxton, kind of all three of them playing well at the same time, that is a very, very intriguing core going forward. Now, if Jenkins gets injured, and that's been the thing with Royce Lewis and Byron Buxton, and you could go to Miguel Sano, you could go to Joe Mauer, you could go to any top Twins prospect along the way, Francisco Liriano, whatever you want to say, injuries have derailed their careers. And if Walker Jenkins can stay healthy, and I know he's dealing with that hamstring strain, he's dealing with that grade 1, if he can come back, which it feels like he's going to come back and be healthy and have a good season, there's no reason why he's not with this team by the 4th of July. Kaelen Culpepper is a fascinating one because while he does have a potential opportunity to get to the big leagues, MLB.com's rankings thinks he'll get to the major leagues in 2027. And honestly, that's probably fine. Give Brooks Lee another chance at shortstop. Royce Lewis is there. You have some other options. Kind of let Kaelen Culpepper cook and develop. But he's been a guy who was a Twins first-round pick out of Kansas State in 2024 and really had a massive 2025 minor league season to get him up through the system and really kind of jumped up this board thanks to how strong of a year he had. He doesn't always profile as a long-term shortstop, but again, could be somebody who plays on that left side of the infield for a long time. Eduardo Tait is number 3 on this Twins list. Of course, he was the one of the main pieces, along with Mick Abel, in the Joan Duran trade with the Philadelphia Phillies. So he makes his debut on this Twins list. If you look at last year, Tait was that number 3 spot. So everything is unchanged from 2025 so far. And then now you go to number 4 rather on this list, Emmanuel Rodriguez. Again, we've talked about him a bunch, but corner outfielder, big power, big swing and miss though when he's not right. But that being said, your top 4 has remained unchanged from a year ago. The biggest change in the top 5 has come. Kendry Rojas has dipped down this list a little bit, and instead jumping in that number 5 spot is Connor Prielipp. And the biggest reason why Connor Prielipp jumps up on this list is that he had a career high in innings as a professional last year with 84 and 2/3 innings. And why he jumps on this list is the potential has always been there, but a lot of times he's been so injured that you couldn't justify putting him high up on this list. Everybody's in love with the stuff of Connor Prielipp. That's why I think eventually him being a lockdown closer, bullpen arm is probably where I think you can get maximum value, just knowing that injury history. That being said, right now he deserves a shake as a starter. And if he can prove he can stay healthy, he's got the stuff to be a starter. And as a left-handed arm, he's very, very intriguing. Connor Prielipp comes in at number 5. There's some other options on this list. Dason Hill, Twins left-handed pitcher, 2028 is his expected start. Gabriel Gonzalez on this list at number 7. He could potentially make the Twins outfield at some point during the 2026 season. Merrick Houston, who was the Twins' first-round draft pick last year out of Wake Forest, projects number 8 on the Twins list, and his projected MLB ETA is 2028, according to this list. Charlie Soto, a Twins pitcher, late first-round pick, early second, somewhere in that range in 2023, lands in the top 9, and then Kendry Rojas slips from 5 all the way down to 10. And the reason being for that is when he got to AAA, he got rocked. And it's basically, now that he has time in AAA, a little more experience, how does he go that second time around? And if he ends up having a big improvement, you could see him get back into the top of this prospect list. And there's also a very good chance we do see Rojas at some point in 2026 if he can prove that he can hold a fort down in AAA. Riley Quick is another Twins high draft pick from last year. He makes the list at number 11. Henry Mendez, who the Twins got in the trade for Harrison Bader, comes in at number 12 on this list. Henry Mendez, another piece that could potentially make the Twins this year, and MLB.com has his ETA as 2026. Same with Twins starter Andrew Morris, again, another right-handed arm that gets thrown in this mix of young arms and seeing how the starting rotation plays out. Quinton Young, shortstop / third baseman. He is the nephew of Dimitri and former Twin Delman Young on this list, which always just makes me feel really old. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that. Marco Raya, who of course got moved to the bullpen, now down to 18 on this list, mainly because he's gotten moved to the pen, so that high-end value just takes him down a notch. But Marco Raya, if he can find the strike zone, and that's a big if, as we've learned early in camp. We talked about him, kind of his stock going down early in camp. Mentioned that on Monday's show as well. John Klein, kind of the new Louis Varland, if you want to look at a Twins pitcher from the Metro who is trying to get who grew up in Minnesota, who's trying to get his shot in the big leagues with his hometown team. He comes in at number 20 on the list. And as we kind of wrap up the final 10 here, not a ton of names that a lot of Twins fans are going to have pop out immediately. Kalai Rosario, who could potentially make this list. He's been on the Twins top prospect list for a while. could potentially make his big league debut this season. Other than that, Jose Lavares, 2027, his big league projected debut. CJ Culpepper, right-handed pitcher, is the only one in the bottom 10 here of this list that could has an ETA of 2026. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but just that he's somebody who is knocking on the door of that big league roster. So we'll see how this all shakes out for the Minnesota Twins, but it really, when you look at this list and you look at these prospects and you look at all the stuff that they have going on, when you get to the bottom 20 of the list, it's kind of, all right, depth pieces, or, could be high end if they stay healthy or if they avoid walks or limit their strikeouts or whatever you want to say. But it's this Twins top 7 list. And really, you can even go top 10 when you look at Kendry Rojas, who I'm very high on. Rojas, Merrick Houston, Gabby Gonzalez, Connor Prielipp. There's a lot of different options there on this Twins list that have the high-end stuff. I think we all expect Walker Jenkins, Kaelen Culpepper, Eduardo Tate, Emmanuel Rodriguez to be ones that could be high value, and everybody kind of assumes that they have a lot of stock in them throughout the system. But can a guy like Rojas come in and take that next step? Can a guy like Houston prove that he can be a big league shortstop hitting-wise, not just with his glove and all of that stuff mixed together? This is just a very intriguing Twins top 10 prospect list. I don't really have any huge disagreements with it. I'm not like a guy who's going to grind tape on prospects. But that being said, it's fascinating to see that it's really been unchanged from where they ranked it post-trade deadline of 2025 in this top 5 ranking. All right, we're going to wrap up the show going through Locked On MLB's top 100 list, and not a ton of Twins connections. But that being said, a lot of AL Central connections coming up in that one. It's all heading in right after this. Today, I'm thrilled to be talking about our sponsor, MLB The Show 26. The greatest game in baseball is back with its newest installment. Baseball fans are going to have a hard time pulling themselves away from this one, because I am ready to roll with MLB The Show. I love it every single year. I can't wait for it to come out. I grind it as soon as it comes out. I'm trying to do my road to the show. I mess around with Diamond Dynasty every once in a while, but I love Road to the Show, my favorite part of the game. And then I love basically going to franchise mode, taking the Minnesota Twins and proving that, yeah, I think I could be a better GM. I think I could be a better whatever. I could prove that if you just spent a little bit of money with this Twins team, you could be good. Cough, cough, poll ads. There's a lot of different things you can do in that franchise mode that's really, really cool. And I love to talk about, and that I just really, with anybody that wants to listen, I'm telling them how I'm making this big trade. I'm building the team from the ground up, all of that stuff. And of course, with Road to the Show, you can live your dream of being a player in MLB The Show's career mode. If you're a gamer, a baseball fan, or just want to enjoy America's favorite pastime in a new and exciting way, you are going to love MLB The Show 26. Play as your favorite team and franchise players to see if you have what it takes to win your own World Series. Visit MLB.show/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON to unlock a pack for use in Diamond Dynasty. Internet connection is required. Pre-order now. Available March 17th on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S and X, and Nintendo Switch. Rated E for everyone. All right, we're going to wrap up our show today by talking about the top 100 players in MLB according to the Locked On Podcast Network. And there's a lot of intriguing spots here to look at when it comes to the Twins. Yesterday, there was a lot of former Twins connections on that first part of the list, and now we turn to our look in spots 90 through 81. I beg your pardon. Shea Langoliers was our 91 spot that we left off on yesterday. So we move into number 90 with Eugenio Suarez, the third baseman for the Cincinnati Reds. Spent some time with the Seattle Mariners and now is moving on to to the Cincinnati Reds. He lands on that list as number 90. Alejandro Kirk, the catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, making the list, getting himself in at the 89 spot. Obviously a big catcher for what they want to do, and they want to try and get back to the World Series and try and get over that hump and beat the Dodgers, which, tough. Everybody's proven that's been pretty tough over the last couple of years. Looking for number 88 on the list, we have Cole Ragans, the starting pitcher out of Kansas City. The Royals kind of was able to get him in a trade with the Texas Rangers, and he's really been able to, again, kind of in that, not that they're the same pitcher, but in that Bailey Ober spot of they're not going to be necessarily this dominant ace all the time, but you're going to get consistency out of Ragans, and I think that's really helped Kansas City kind of get out of the pit and get back to being that respectable MLB franchise. Obviously, Bobby Witt helps, but outside of Bobby Witt, their offense isn't necessarily the strongest thing on their roster. Ragans has been one of the leaders of that pitching staff and has been a big reason why they've been able to at least get back to respectability over the last handful of seasons. Matt Chapman, the third baseman for the San Francisco Giants, ranks in at number 87 on the list. Kyle Bradish, the starting pitcher for Baltimore, comes in at 86. Aroldis Chapman at 85, the closer for the Boston Red Sox. That dude is going to pitch until the end of time. Like we all go back to that highlight of Joe Mauer and Josh Willingham getting big hits off of Chapman when he was a rookie in like 2012. And if you remember, he was throwing 101 at the time. Everybody's like, that's unhittable. Like who can do that? Who can throw that? Aroldis Chapman's the only one in the game that can do that. He was one of the first guys to be that pure flamethrower, consistently touching triple digits. And the fascinating thing is he's been able to keep up that velocity for the main part of his career and still go on strong. And even though it doesn't mean as much as it did when he first came up, he kind of led that revolution into the hard throwers and things like that. And obviously he's had his own issues over the course of his career, but as a baseball player himself, he is going to be a Hall of Famer for his longevity alone. Pitched a huge part of why the Cubs made the World Series. But if you're looking at this year and projecting into 2026, he had a really, really solid season with the Boston Red Sox where I don't think he blew a save. Maybe he blew one all year long. His win probability added is just through the roof for Aroldis Chapman. And if he continues that even a little bit, he's very well deserving. It's very interesting that you have Chapman in on this 85 spot. And then yesterday we talked about the fact that Joan Duran was number 98 on this list. And I think if you're going to put Aroldis Chapman at 85, it does make a little more sense putting Duran at 98, because I think as of last year, even though Duran was great, Chapman and before he got suspended Class A were maybe the two that you could put above him. And so if Chapman's going to go there, then it makes a little bit more sense. Andrew Abbott, starting pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds, comes in at number 84 on this list. Jose Altuve, the second baseman for the Houston Astros, comes in at 83. Altuve, remember, they tried to experiment with him in the outfield, and it went about as well as Miguel Sano playing corner outfield. Remember, they tried to move Trevor Plouffe, Joe Mauer to those corner outfield spots for a while. They kind of just throw you out there to say, hey, can you take up space out there? And for Altuve, it was always going to be hard just because he doesn't have the height, which you want in your outfielders sometimes to go scale a wall, to just be able to have a little bit longer reach when you want to dive for those balls in the gap, reach over the fence, all that kind of stuff. Jose Altuve didn't have the best time out there in those corner outfield spots, but still one of the best hitters in the game, first ballot Hall of Famer, all of that stuff. Starting to regress a little bit and show his age. But that being said, still a highly, highly productive player for Houston. Looking at Riley Green, the Detroit Tigers outfielder, comes in at 82 on this list, and they're expecting a big season out of him for the Tigers to try and take back the AL Central, to try and get over that hump in the postseason. They have the pitching to do it. Their lineup needs to help them out a little bit, and Riley Green, one of those big hitters for them as well. And then the twin killer himself, Josh Naylor. The Naylor boys, just for whatever reason, kill the Twins every single time they play them. The first baseman for Seattle this year signed that big extension with them and will be a thorn in the Twins' side when he comes to town every single season with the Seattle Mariners and going out there to Seattle as well. Whether it's Bo Naylor, Josh Naylor, it doesn't matter. They always feel like they hit a back-breaking home run against the Minnesota Twins at the worst possible time. So there is our list at numbers 90 through 81 on the Locked On Top 100 MLB players in 2026. That's wrapping up today's show today. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On Twins. I know I promised a guest, but just had a few scheduling things conflict. We will get them on later in the week, so I want to hype that up. Keep listening all week long. We're going to get them on before Friday. Promise ya. And then we'll keep going through the top 100 list as well, going through 80 through 71 tomorrow, and any other news that's breaking out of spring training. You can find me on X at BombCJ30. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Twins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedontwins.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On Fantasy Baseball as you gear up for the MLB season. I'm CJ Baumgartner. See ya.